Hey, I'm Stephen Glosser.
And I'm Megan Pikert.
Welcome to the Going Somewhere podcast,
A podcast for anyone who finds themselves in the ambiguous adventure of young adulthood.
a season that's marked by uncertainty, change, love, heartbreak, and a whole lot of big decisions.
Join us for some real conversations as we dig into what it looks like to be a follower of Jesus in this beautiful yet complicated season of life.
We're so glad you're here, and we'd love to have you join our little Going Somewhere podcast community. Follow us on Instagram at goingsomewhere.podcast and join the conversation.
We're all going somewhere. We might as well go there together.
Thanks for listening. Let's jump into today's episode. Hey everybody, welcome to this week's episode of the Going Somewhere podcast. I'm Steven, and I'm joined by
Megan.
Megan's here, and we are pumped for another episode of the podcast. How are you doing, Megan?
I'm good. How's it going?
So good. I would say this past Saturday, so from recording time, was probably like a peak Saturday in my existence. Well, you were included in our family's plans for the first part of the day, but we had breakfast on the front porch, and we were outside from like 8:30 until 7:30 p.m. It was like awesome. I mowed my lawn for the first time. Shout out to dads everywhere, and New Balance. But I don't actually wear New Balances. I need some. So
Sponsor, please.
sponsor. Yeah. What's new? What's going on?
Not much. I was just going to say with the Saturday when we ate breakfast on the porch, we had Fruit Loops. And the amount of people, I posted a picture of the Fruit Loops on Instagram, and the amount of people that were like, I'm jealous of your Saturday. Those look so good. And I was like, we can all do this. You can all rest, eat cereal outside. So
For a short time, though, because RFK is coming after Fruit Loops.
bummer.
2026, he's trying to get all the dyes out.
This is the worst news. I didn't know that.
I know, yeah. And Fruit Loops was literally on the news article that I read. Fruit Loops was like the image included.
Oh, no.
And then you just look at them and you're like, oh, yeah, that's all dye, you know.
I mean, fair.
But they're good.
They are good.
They're good. But that's not what we're talking about today. We're not going on a rant of the new food. There's a lot of people that are super excited about that. I'm very close to putting like red dye enthusiast on my Instagram bio. So
no.
I'm just I shouldn't be that way, but I have been that way. So
Slightly
I apologize.
Controversial, but that's
very
okay.
controversial. I'm sorry to everybody. I know that it's probably not good, but I'm learning. But hey, that's not what we're talking about today. We're continuing our conversation. Last week we talked about developing core values. Well, what are we talking about this week?
We're talking about how to live out your core values.
Yes, we are. We're talking about living them out. And so, obviously, if you have not, I said living in them.
Yeah, I know.
Cool
I was
way
going to let
say
it go.
Okay, it had an M in there somewhere. But if you haven't listened to episode 72, you should go back and listen to it, because that'll kind of give you the framework for what we are talking about in this episode. But why don't you just give us, especially the reminder, so those people already paused it and went to 72. They're not here anymore. The people that didn't listen to it aren't here right now.
Got it.
They'll be back eventually, but let's just give kind of a recap of that episode a little bit so that we're fresh going into this one.
Yeah, so last week we talked about what are core values, why are they important, and what do they actually do for your life? And we kind of just talked about the idea that a lot of us, we don't have core values. We allow other things to influence us, a comparison or success or other people's definitions of those things kind of inform our decisions and the direction that we go unintentionally. But core values provide that structure. And so they are a way to make decisions. They're a way to foster healthy relationships and to give you direction for your life. And so that was kind of what we talked about last week, was just why are these so important? And then how do you actually come up with core values for yourself? Because there's so many options and there's a lot of what we value. You know, you can value a lot of things, but what is core to you and what is core to decision making for your life moving forward? Yeah.
And like you said, the first thing that most people have not done is actually made them, like establish core values. So therefore other people are kind of dictating what's most important to them on that particular day. And so that's a big deal. But then if we're not aligned with those core values, they're just slogans and sayings. And so I think it's important that we take this step. And so we're going to really talk about the rhythms, habits, the things that really embed these values into our lives. But first, we just kind of wanted to actually look at some companies and some businesses that might be familiar to you. We looked into what are some of the core values that they have, and then just seeing the alignment, because I think that helps us understand what that looks like, because we've all probably experienced some of these places, and we're just going to maybe grab one or two of the values and kind of go through that. So what's the first one we're going to go through?
Let's talk about Chick-fil-A, because
yeah.
I think we all have something that comes to our mind when we think Chick-fil-A, and it's probably my pleasure, right?
Yes.
And that is shown in their core values, right?
Yeah, their first one is customer first. That's their first value, is we put the customer first. So it's our pleasure to serve. So really, when it comes down to it, the things that they're all about are service, hospitality, and honoring God through business. And so when it comes to customer service, you see that there's really no request. Last night, see, Taylor embarrasses me sometimes, and she'll listen. Well, she might not. I don't know. We'll see if she listens to this one. She's a busy girl. But she gets the ice. She gets the pellet ice, which is not a menu item. And I always feel weird when you order something that's not on the menu. So she asks for 2 of like the giant bags, so hack, you can order the bags of ice that Chick-fil-A has, but in my mind it's like an inconvenient thing. Like they have to find the bags and they have to go to the ice machine and use up more ice than they probably want to use. But for them, like, they did it with a smile and they were excited to do it. And somebody last night, we were literally doing this, and one of the people didn't understand the ask that we had made, but everybody rallied together and they made sure that they met the customer need without us feeling weird at all. And so I think that's kind of an example of that for sure.
Yeah, we catered Chick-fil-A for an event a couple weeks ago, and I was there, and they were trying to find the catering bag for me to take the food out, and they just couldn't find it anywhere. And I probably had, I'm not even kidding, 8 different employees ask me, 1, if I had been helped, and 2, had they found the bag. And so it was just like are you being taken care of? And I was just like, man, even though I've been waiting here for like 20 minutes for this one bag, I feel so cared for,
That's
like
awesome.
I'm not unnoticeable,
Yeah.
And so I thought that was really cool and made a inconvenience for the customer actually not a bad experience. So
For sure. What's the next one we're going to do?
let's do Nike.
Awesome. Okay, Nike. A couple of them that jumped out. These are their first 2, but inspiration and innovation. How would you see those things played out? Like, I'm just asking you cold because you actually don't have this list in front of you right now.
Yeah, and I don't really buy a lot of things from Nike other than the shoes I'm wearing at the moment.
Yeah, you are wearing Nike shoes.
Fair. I feel like I see this just a lot. Like, the first thing that comes to mind is like their commercials and their ads. I think they're really unique. I think that they aim to inspire, and they aim to, like, when you watch an advertisement or a commercial from Nike, I'm like, I could do that. I could go run like that person's running, or
Right.
you get this excitement, and then it translates to, well, the clothing is like what makes that, like if you want that lifestyle, you need the whole vibe.
Well, that's for sure. I mean, especially their video ads. Their print ads have like the actual item on them more, but most of their video ads are 30 seconds of a sport taking place and then the swoosh at the end. Like, you don't even know what piece of item they sold you. They sold you a lifestyle. Like, they sold you can be whoever this athlete is if you wear our clothing. And they have like a grip on me and so many others, because we innately think that Nike does make us better. So I'm more likely to buy that. And then the innovation thing, I mean, they were on the cutting edge of running shoes. Like, if you've ever read the book Shoe Dog, you've seen this. Like, they were obsessed with making the best running shoe. And of course, there's other companies that have innovated them and out-innovated them and have created new models of this, but they were the first. And that's kind of been a part of that. And I've also seen some Nike stuff that I'm like, I would never wear that, but that's part of that identity and that value system of innovation. We are not going to get stagnant. So I think that's another good example. There's a clothing store or a sporting goods store in our town, or that's actually headquarters are here. What is that one?
Okay, this is Shields,
Yeah,
correct?
Yeah, I'm
okay.
trying to lead you without telling you.
I feel confident in that because I will actually want you to share your experience that one time when you returned an item, and that's part of their values, right?
Yeah. I don't want to start a movement, but basically basically Shields, some of their stuff is customer focused. Like that's their number one core value. So they go above and beyond in every way, whether that's how they assist customers, all those things. But one experience I had is I had an item that I thought was from Shields. And so, but it didn't fit. I got it for Christmas, no receipt. So I took it in under the assumption that that's where it was bought from. So I went to the counter, and they tried to look it up on their computer to pull up the price because they didn't need the receipt. After a little while, she came out and she's like, well, I can't find this item. And I was like, oh, okay. And then she said, well, let me just give you an equivalent. And that might not have been kosher, but it was customer focused.
Mm-hmm. And it's not necessarily like they might not do that for everyone, but it made your experience, it changed how you viewed Shields they're focused on the customer and them having a good experience. And I was just there. My sister was in town a couple weeks ago, and we went to Shields, and they have the Ferris wheel inside. And Nicole had my nephew, Drew, and was like, let's ride the Ferris wheel. And so we went over there, and Drew is tiny. He's not even 2. And so they were like, sorry, he's too small. But instead, they were like, hey, actually, he's too small, and then gave him a stuffed animal. And it was just like, he just ripped the tag off and was like, here. And then they tried to give us another one at the checkout. And I was like, this is just a normal thing. They see a kid and they're giving you a small gift. And that obviously makes the kid happy. And then I think internally also, like, the parent sees that.
For sure.
And so.
Yeah, I think that they embody that customer focus really well. And that's a reason that they are so successful, not only in our town, but around. Like, another one of their values is community engagement, and you see them a part of a lot of things. You see their name on a lot of buildings. Every sports complex is either Sanford or Shields in our town. Mm-hmm. But they're involved in everything in the community, and I think that definitely shows. Just a couple more that I was going to do. One is Patagonia. This is a unique one. Some of their one of theirs is use business to protect nature. They're very like nature, green, all that stuff. But their first one is build the best product. And so one thing that I found, I read a book. It was on culture, and it was Let My People Go Surfing. It was by the founder of Patagonia. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that they talked about is how part of their culture is they want you to buy one Patagonia item for the rest of your life. So instead of making it out of cheap products that you need to buy a new one after 3-4 years, they actually have a program where you can get it fixed, that they'll repair it. They want it to be as functioning as possible. They want to use the best things. And so it's another one of those examples of the values driving the product, or the values driving the behavior. And one other one is Five Guys, and one of theirs is quality. And something that's fascinating about Five Guys is that most people think they have great food, but it's also expensive. So a lot of people are like, yeah, it's just expensive. Well, what they did is they let their kids be a part of the business. And that's another one. Family is another one of their values. And they let their kids be a part of the process of creating the best burger. So they let them go wild. They were ordering tomatoes from all over the country. They were ordering potatoes from farms in Idaho and every other place that you can get potatoes. And they literally wanted to create the best burger. And so they didn't like go chintzy on any of the ingredients so that they would have the best product. So their value of quality is greater than, any other aspect of whether it's affordability or whatever. They just wanted to create the best burger, and that's their business model, and it's been super successful. So that's just a few examples that we thought were kind of fascinating when it goes, okay, we're going to talk about what it looks like in our life, but there's some examples that we see in our everyday life that we can actually recognize, like, okay, that's what it looks like to embody values. It actually impacts behavior. It impacts somebody's perception of you or the organization. So let's just talk really briefly about just kind of a few reasons why this matters. I think that's important to establish. So what's the first reason of why this matters?
Yeah, well, values provide direction over distraction, meaning that they give you a sense of where am I going and how am I making decisions to get there, and they allow you to not get distracted by things that don't align with where you're trying to go or with God's will in your life. And so they really they help you make the best decision for the life that you want to live and the person that you're trying to become.
Yeah, for sure. So direction over distraction. The second one is consistency builds character. Really meaning integrity comes from when we align our private habits with our public values. So integrity is being the same person behind closed doors as you are in front of other people. And like that deep level, like you are who you are, and what you see is what you get type thing. And so when you have values and you start to live them out consistently, it actually helps you build that character and be that person that you say you are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then also with values, having a way to implement rhythms shapes your reality. And so what you repeatedly do is who you become. I think there's also a famous quote, and I don't know who it's by, but you probably do, but how you spend your days is how you spend your life. And so just being aware of what am I doing every day? How am I living out my values with an intentional rhythm?
Yep, for sure. I don't know. I was going to jokingly say it was Jesus, but it wasn't. So
it was just in a John Mark Comer book that I'm reading right now. And I don't know who he quoted. Eugene Peterson, probably.
It was probably Annie Dillard.
Oh, that actually really sounds right.
That is right. And then the fourth one is clarity in chaos. So when life gets messy, values bring focus and they anchor us in the storms of life. So when we have those values and we live by those values, for instance, in my life, and we're going to really talk about ours, but family focused. So even if there's chaos in every other area of my life or in different things, like I have that as an anchor. Like I'm not going to lose sight of that. And so by prioritizing family, prioritizing date nights, prioritizing time with my kids and bedtimes and the stuff that we're going to talk about, it allows me, even if financially things fall out of the bottom, even if work things fall out, like I have that. And of course my first value is Jesus centered. And so like that's the unshakable anchor, but these really help us find clarity in chaos.
Yeah. Do you have a time in your life when you've seen like your value really take hold in a situation? Like, has there been a storm in your life where you're like, okay, I needed to be anchored and your values helped you get through that?
Well, I think the example I'm going to share, because I think there's plenty of times that Jesus centered, that first one has been there, but I think because that's been the unshakable one. So, when we've walked through, whether it was, a miscarriage when, between Summit and Rowan and, but like that wasn't shaken because of that value. And I think just because of our faith, but also like I would say something that comes to mind is in that same circumstance, like the values of family focus. Cause I remember feeling how easy it was to drift in that time. Like it was kind of confusing. I didn't know how to support Taylor. I didn't know how to support her. And so I kind of just centered myself on the kids. And I think just having that value remaining just allowed us to not drift away, like to not drift from each other in that time. Cause there was a lot of times that I would try to support and I didn't know how to support. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to be there, but I just tried to be consistent in the rhythms that we had established and just being consistent with the kids. Cause there was just times where it wasn't as easy, especially for Taylor, of just like that loss was harder for her because it was physical for her and it was she felt all of it. I was just more so told, this is what happened. It was pretty early in our pregnancy. And so I think that is an example. I think also in times of busyness, so less like storm, but there's times where things get really busy and things get really, like with work or whatever, that there's a lot to do and a lot going on. And I've always felt a pull to like prioritize projects over people in those situations where it's just like, I need to shut out everything else and everyone else and just really focus on the thing. And I think having the people driven as a value has oftentimes allowed me to remember like, no, that's not the case. And I haven't always gotten that right. And I was just with a friend last week. 2 weeks ago, we had Easter, we had some NVLC stuff. We had a lot going on. And I remember telling him, I was like, 5 years ago, I would have canceled this one-on-one. And now I've learned to actually embrace these moments where I can pull up from air and focus on what this is all about. Like what being a pastor, what being in ministry is all about is people. So I think that's a couple examples that come to my mind. Anything that comes to yours?
That was good. The one that just immediately came to my mind was when I was living in Indiana and I was determining what I wanted to do next. My job was ending, and I was in a season where that I had an opportunity to take a job to do something that I really really wanted to do. But one of my values is family focused, and stole that from you. The nice little tagline for it, but is just my family and my family back home, which Minnesota. I was living in Indiana. There was some things going on there, some health things with my parents and family going through some struggles and hard times. And I remember being like, but everything's coming at me on a silver platter. Like, it's mine if I want it. And I could move even further from home. I could have the dream job that I thought I would take after college. But then I remember looking at, like, thinking about my family and being like, but my family is like a core value for me and who I want to be surrounded by. And so that really weighed a decision. And it wasn't necessarily a storm. It was just like it was a big decision that I could make. And I remember thinking through the decision based on what I valued the most, and ended up, obviously my family won. Yeah. And now I'm here. But that was really hard because I was laying down something in my life. Not that it was bad. It just didn't align with the core of who I wanted to be and where I wanted my life to go in the future.
That's good. I mean, I think, like you said, it's not always the storms. It is those, like we talked about, the first one was the kind of direction, over distraction, or just like the idea of making decisions and that filter that it can be. I know even just when we lived in New Jersey, like it was COVID, there was a lot of stressful things. And we've always looked back at that season as, for me, like healing, restorative, one of my best seasons of my life, 2 years that like really reshaped these last 5. For Taylor, it was the hardest 2 years of her life. She was pregnant. She had a baby that was in the NICU right before COVID, and her family wasn't there to help. And we just didn't have the support system. And so there was a point where, like, even if work didn't change to bring us back to Fargo like it did, we were prayerfully, and I was prayerfully going like, I will put my family first, before this opportunity, before this job that I love, or this thing that I really enjoy being a part of. And I think that was another like test of those values. So it wasn't something that we had to actually like utilize, but I remember going through those values and be like, no, I mean, I will put her first and her needs first before we get to that point. So again, we didn't have to, but kind of going out of that though, really this is about building rhythms and about creating rhythms that help us live out these values. So I kind of view rhythms or habits or whatever you want to call them as like the bridge between kind of this idea of values and then actually like the embodiment of values. So what we're going to talk about is just kind of creating rhythms. So daily, weekly, even monthly habits that reflect your values. If you value connection, it's spending scheduled time calling people, or intentional dinners, or having parts in your, something in your calendar marked off for that. We're going to also talk about evaluating relationships. Are you closest to people? Are your closest people aligned with you or pulling you from your values? Are they people that, if you value something faith-based, are they causing you to become more like Jesus or causing you to drift from him? And so we're going to talk about the relationships. Also establishing reminders. So just having things, whether it's physical on the mirror, something on a note on your phone, something that you see regularly in your Bible that just reminds you of your values. It could be alarms on your phone that are just kind of set up to remind you of who you are, and to remind you of who you were called to be. And then to revisit this regularly. Life changes, so should your rhythms. So building in kind of some seasonal check-ins. For me, one of my check-ins is my monthly journaling practice. What I share publicly doesn't include it. because I know not everybody has values, but one of the things I do every month is I kind of go through my values and just kind of like 1 or 2 sentences. How am I doing? How am I living these out? Am I living these out? What do I need to grow in? So those are some practical things. Anything else you would add to that as just kind of, because what we're going to do is walk people through that in our own life to really give you a picture of how you can think through this in your values. But anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I was thinking was just that I think sometimes we get overwhelmed as a young adult. I'll just speak from our target audience. I think we get overwhelmed that we want to live a really intentional life, but we just don't know how. And I think it's why finances seems overwhelming. It's why buying a house or figuring out those life things, because we just don't know like our best next step. But I think as far as establishing your values is a great first step, you know, to making those decisions in the future. And part of that is learning how to live out your values. It's not just figuring out what they are, naming them, but it's like, okay, how do I actually intentionally build in rhythms? And rhythms aren't meant to add on or like make you do more in your life, but they're helping you do the right things in your life.
Right.
And I think that's an important distinction that we hope that you're not just listening and being like, you guys are just telling me more of what I need to do. It's more of like, how can you live your life to the fullest and live an abundant life that God wants for you? And I think just recognizing that is that's what values add to your life, is helping you live abundantly in the calling that God has put on your life.
For sure. And I can speak from like the post young adult place, because like we talked about last week, I really did establish these about 9 years ago. So I was about 23 or 24, somewhere in there, when I first kind of came across and took seriously like the idea of core values. And not that everything has just gotten perfect and I've never drifted or gotten off track at all, but I feel like when I look back at these last 10 years, having these values has been an anchor for that season. And I don't always see that when I look around. I see a lot of friends in identity crisis right now. I see people that are my age kind of navigating who they are. Like they're trying to discover who they are. And I think that this has been something that's kind of helped me stick to who God's called me to be throughout the last 10 years. And so I've just seen the fruit of this, and again, not having gotten it perfect or gotten it right all the time, but that's why I'm really passionate about, you know, in this young adult setting, is helping you guys realize if you do this now, what it saves you from, you know, later. It's kind of why I am kind of always advocating for people to start getting serious about their finances and invest and do the things that you need to do when you're in your early 20s, because it really does impact the next 10 years of your life. So that's kind of why I'm so passionate. But there's a quote by James Clear, who wrote Atomic Habits, and he said, "You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems." Or another way to say that is you fall to the level of your rhythms and your habits. So even if you have great values on paper, you will always fall to the habits or rhythms. So let's talk about ours and break them down. We may not go through all of our values, but let's just go through a few of them. Your first value, Megan, is Jesus-centered. So what does that mean to you? And then how do you live that out?
Yeah, I think practically it looks like daily quiet time, trying my hardest to implement weekly Sabbath, and kind of just having those rhythms, attending church weekly, being active. Obviously, I work at a church, but also being active, serving as well. But I also think it goes beyond that, in the sense that praying with any big or little decision in my life, it's having the rhythm of journaling and asking the Holy Spirit to speak into things, to be convicted, to be encouraged. And I think it's overall the baseline for me. It's especially as it goes for values. One part of having core values is helping you make good decisions. And so, does this align with God's will? Is this something that Jesus would do, you know?
Right.
Or even, I mean, as far as not even just decisions, but the way that you speak. And so that's, I think, one of the biggest ways that I try to be Jesus-centered, or maybe need to grow in the most, is just, are my words aligned? You know, would I say this to Jesus? Would Jesus say this? And so
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's for me, but that's the same. You have the same top core value. How does this look like in your life?
Yeah, I stole it from you when you were 14 and you had yours established, and I was just working on mine, you
Yep,
know?
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
No, yeah, Jesus centered to me is, I mean, it's kind of, it is what it is, but like, to me, it's not just Jesus first, as much as that's important, but it's Jesus centered in the sense that I want everything in my life to flow from him. And that's that abide, that remaining, John 15. And so when I think of Jesus centered, it impacts every area of my life. So if he truly is, if I'm truly centered in him and truly like he is the most important thing, the most important person that really dictates everything else, it does impact everything else. So for me, that living it out is, like you said, it's daily time in the word, daily time in prayer. It's really anchoring myself not only in his word, but in his presence, and allowing that to be like what overshadows, you know, the emotions or the mood that I'm feeling, or, you know, the feelings I have towards situations. Like, I'm open to him changing my heart towards a person. Like, I'm open to him changing my heart towards a situation because I'm centered in him. But yeah, I would say though, just the daily consistency is kind of the rhythm. The Bible before phone, just trying to get to him before the distractions get to me, is a big part of that. And like trying to get to him before the thoughts of the day and before the things that are on my to-do list, before I remember, you know, that conflict that I have with this person that I need to navigate. Like, I want to come to him so that I'm flowing out of that. And so that's the first one. What's our second one?
Yeah, well, we both have family focused as the second, but I think we live this out differently.
Yep.
Just you are a dad and you have kids, and I don't live with my parents anymore, and so it looks different. I think for me, it's looked different in different seasons, but one thing that right now I'm trying to live out and just be better at is texting and calling my family, which seems silly, but when's the last time you called your mom or your dad, you know? And I
Right.
think sometimes we just take that for granted. And lately I've just been trying to increase that communication. I also have siblings that I love very dearly. And so we had a really good rhythm of monthly virtual dinners. And so we all live all over the state. But once a month we would just hop on FaceTime and everyone would cook dinner separately, but we would just chat about our day. It would be like an hour and then we'd all just hang up. And it was just a good check-in, a good rhythm for that too. I think also with your family, especially if you don't live with them, it's quality over quantity. And so that means when I'm home, I'm home. You know, when I'm home, phone is not in my hand. When I'm home, I'm not just sitting in my room. And I think being family focused when you're with your family says a lot about that value. And it's the quality time that you're spending with them. Don't waste an opportunity. When I go home, it's usually for 24 hours or less. And so I try to capitalize on every moment. I don't go home all the time or as much as I would want to, but the
Right.
time that I do spend at home, I'm focused on them and try to really prioritize that.
That's cool.
How does it look for you as a dad?
Yeah. I mean, being married and having 3 kids, you know, this one looks like one, we don't call it month or weekly, but like 3 date nights a month is kind of our goal. We've tried weekly, we've tried it kind of all the things, but we've kind of found our rhythm with at least 3, like being the target. And so that comes with scheduling them a month in advance now. It comes with, you know, reaching out to babysitters in advance. When I say babysitters, I mainly mean you, but it means getting all of that stuff aligned so that stays a priority. So that, because I would say this is one that I was not living out well, because I would let other commitments and we would let just like the tiredness at the end of the day kind of override that. So we just, no, it's not worth it. So now when, like yesterday was one of those days, we were going in 1,000 different directions. Taylor was in Fergus Falls for one of our son's dentist appointments, and I had a dinner with a friend, and it was just one of those days that we just kind of were in our own worlds. And then I think you texted Taylor like, hey, what time should I come over to watch the kids? And she's like, wait, what? Because she forgot we had a date. But having it on the calendar, having it already done the work of reaching out to you, made us keep that. And it was just we only went out for an hour. We went to Chick-fil-A, we bought ice, brought you a lemonade, you know, but just that hour that we had was really meaningful. And so it's bedtimes is a big thing for me, especially in ministry. So I try to be at home for bed at least 5 or 6 nights a week. And there's obviously exceptions to that, but dinner time, just having family dinner is a big deal. And then we try to do one-on-ones with each kid, like I would say monthly or bi-monthly, where I try to get time with each of the 3 kids, just even for an hour or two, where it's just us and we're doing something super intentional. So those are some of the things. Like you said, I feel like one of the areas I struggle is the distance of my parents and my brother, and just taking the initiative on that. Sometimes I think everybody can get into the, like, you know, I don't want to be the only one who calls, and I just need to get over that and initiate that. And I just feel a lot of relief when I hang up those phone calls. I'm like, oh, I'm just glad I did that. Like it was so worth it to just take some time and just catch up and just remind each other that we love each other and value each other, even though we don't see each other. So those are a few things. What's your next one?
My next one is intentionality. Intentionality minded is kind of how I phrased it, but with that perspective, I want to have a why behind what I'm doing. I don't, like, I quoted whoever it was, Annie Dillard, if we're committing to that, of how you spend your days is how you spend your life. And, you know, I've gone through times when I'm like, man, I'm just not spending my day very well, you know?
Yeah.
And so I want to, what I do, I want to have a purpose, and I want to be someone that lives with a sense of purpose and doesn't drift through life. And that comes with just having intentionality, with having intentional conversations. I think that is one way that I've grown in that value, is that sometimes I would hang out or have conversations with friends, and I would not ask the thing I wanted to ask, whether it was something that was going on in their life or something I felt like was going on. But I just learned with having intentionality is like being intentional with every person and with every moment that you have and capitalizing on it. And so I think that's how I would describe intentionality in my life. It's just something I think is really important, and something that's really helped me keep my main things too.
Well, and what's interesting too is, like, even working with you in different, whether, you know, you interned with me for a year and now you have your own role, but there's a lot of overlap. Well, one of the things, we have a weekly meeting, and something that you do is you send a list of everything before that meeting, and it allows me to think about what we're going to talk about. And so it's just like your intentionality, even in that setting. I see it all the time, and like how you live that out. So you take time to think through the things that are coming up and make some plans for that. So that's really cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What's your third one?
My third one is people driven. And this is one that I really, when I established it, when I did the activity that we went through last week, you know, it was friendships, relationships, you know, connection, all those things were important to me. And I think in ministry, especially, like, ministry can, and I said it earlier, but you can really get caught up in the things. Like, there's always another Sunday. There's always, you know, in a church our size, like, there's events and there's really fruitful ministry activities that are taking place all the time. Like, we were talking the week, was it before Easter, and we had several things going on all at once, and different staff members included and stuff. And I remember being in that place when I was writing these, that I realized how easy it was for me to prioritize projects over people. So I just was like, I need to be people driven, and it comes after Taylor, and it because we didn't have kids at the time, it has to become after that. So I can't allow the concerns of ministry and the people that need my attention to step over Taylor's needs. But I want it to be the thing that drives the ministry. Like, I want people to be in focus at all time when I'm doing whatever task I'm doing, whether it's updating a roster of something or a spreadsheet that I have to work through to bring organization to what I'm doing, or writing content or writing a sermon, writing something that's going to, like, I'm not just providing content, I'm helping people live out their God-given callings. I'm helping them become all that God has called them to be. So I'm trying to help bring them along. So it changes the way I write sermons and the way that I communicate with people. But a few of the ways that works out is, well, one, just like the life group, that's been a rhythm for, oh gosh, almost 15 years now, or 14 years of just having a group of people that I meet with consistently that I can share life with, be vulnerable with. We did confession today, just sharing sin in our life and praying with each other. And it was just so powerful to have that and to recognize and be thankful that I've had that for a long time now. Another one is just, we try to be pre-planned about our friendships. So with 3 kids, it doesn't look like it did when I was 23. And, but it makes it more important that I have that built in. So watching games with friends, or we play sports together, whatever the case is, just having that built in to the rhythm. Couple other things in this one are like the work lunch that we do Mondays. We have a not mandatory optional lunch that a majority of our staff comes to, and that kind of was established in a time where I felt like I was caught in the vortex of stuff and I was just doing stuff, and I didn't really have 30 minutes 45 minutes to give, but I realized like I need to do this. And so we just started to, I think Mark and I were just like, let's just do it. Let's just have this time where we invite everybody. And it's become like one of our favorite, rhythms in our workplace, is that we get to all be together. We are not talking about work. We're just talking about life. We're laughing. Debo's asking ridiculous questions, and we go around in a circle and talk about it. And it's just become something that's refocused the work. And so that's another rhythm or habit that's kind of help me remain people driven.
Yeah. It's fun around here at like 11:55 on Mondays. Everyone's like, lunchtime to the windows. And so that's pretty fun.
I think you just said the first line of a inappropriate rap.
Oh, I'm sorry.
To the window.
Oh, guys,
we won't finish, but I appreciate it. I grew up in the 2000s. I was in middle school when that song came out. So shout out.
No, moving on. My 4th value, I'm embarrassed. Curiosity driven. So you talked about being people driven, but I lean more so on the side of curiosity driven. And this is just where I get my learning, where I want to be reading. My goal for 2025 is to read 2 books a month. And so I have them planned out for the most part of like which books I want to read. And my other goal, kind of simultaneous with that, was to read everything on my bookshelf, because I have so many unread books. Yeah. And so, but part of that is just to learn, to gain new perspective. Majority of them are like leadership development or spiritual development books. But also, like I was talking to you and I was like, I want to learn how to edit the podcast, just like trying to find ways that I can grow in different giftings of things that I'm already doing. And so, sometimes that takes a little bit of intentionality of like figuring out I don't need to like buy a couple $100 course to learn something, but what's something that someone can teach me that they're good at that I can learn from them. And I think that goes into not necessarily a core value of mine, but mentorship and just having people around you that are good at different things than you that you can learn from.
That's so cool. And I mean, the way you answer or ask questions displays this too. Like, I don't know how many times you've asked me a question. I'm like, I've never once in my entire life thought of that, but that's awesome.
So genuinely, my favorite quote you've ever said is me asking you something about the Bible, and you said, I've never thought about that, and I will never think about that again. And I was like, what a bold response. And it was okay. I just asked someone else.
Well, yeah. And I mean, I need to do the work. So I'm just a very simple human. And, that's just how, like, for me to be where I'm at, my faith journey hasn't taken a lot of like, I really need to know this. Like for me, it's just been like hey, I believe it. Let's do it, and so you've really challenged me though, actually, to kind of engage that though, to be more curious and to actually live that out. And this isn't my 4th one. I'm just going to kind of piggyback though. Teachable is one of my core values. And I would say it's similar. I would say my curiosity might look different. I think my curiosity is relational driven. Like I love just getting to know people and where things come from. I love taking note of like core values at businesses. And I love just thinking through and looking around and going like, how did this become, especially when it comes to organizations and systems and that kind of stuff. I love kind of going like, that is the outcome. I wonder how it got there. So behind the scenes things, I love watching documentaries. I love watching the things that kind of pull back the curtain, and just kind of give you the, like, oh, that's the behind the scenes of how that's made. And then books, like that's been a consistent rhythm for a long time, is basically like 36 books a year, which ends up being 3 a month. But that's kind of been the goal, the target for the last probably 7-8 years. And that's just a way that I prioritize that teachability.
I was thinking, you were sharing a book, I think it was the Patagonia book, and I was like, man, you should read some off the wall things. Like, you don't necessarily read like set in stone, like pastoral books or dad or husband books, but I was like, man, you read just how did Patagonia get started? How did Starbucks? Things like that. You talked about Nike and the shoe or something.
Shoe Dog.
Yeah, there it is.
Great one.
But it's like, but that just right when you talked about that, of like, I like to pull back the curtain. How did this get to where it was or get to where it is now? That makes a lot of sense. And so I see you living out that.
Yeah. And I think, instead of us going through the rest of ours, I just want to note on a couple of mine, and then you can note, just kind of quick. Like, I was just thinking through, authentic, because authentic is one that might feel a little bit different. Like, being authentic to me is a big deal. And that doesn't mean, I am who I am, deal with it. To me, authenticity is I'm the same person in public as I'm in private. My kids know the same version or a better version than people that just see me on a stage. And so, one of the areas that I live that out, because there's not like necessarily a rhythm of be yourself. Like, but one of the things is with social media, I really enjoy social media. I've, my internship out of college, my degree, I kind of came in the communication, marketing, advertising world when social media, like before Instagram was a thing. And so, I've just always seen it as kind of like a play box and a sandbox where I can just have fun and learn things and play around. But one of the things that I've been, and Cordell Finton's been an accountability partner in this over the years, actively and then more passively, but is just, am I projecting an image of my life, my family, who I am that's not true? Because I don't believe that is, I think that's one of the harmful things about social media. So when we post things about our life, I go through the filter of, is this really me? Like, is this who I am? And, obviously the humor and the things that come out of that, there's some off the wall things that I've done on social media, like duck voices or
shout out the duck video that went viral.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. We got some footage in the hopper. We just got to figure out if we want to do it or not. But like that's Taylor and I. The whole reason that whole thing came to be was I saw 2 ducks walking by, and I literally had a scenario in my brain, and I was like, Taylor, can we record something? And we did, and it has like 1.7 million views, which is stupid. But like that. The authenticity piece of that's so important to me, because whatever I'm projecting there, I just don't want it to be something that we're not living out. And same with my writing, or same with, I just wrote a blog about family ministry. Like, I want it to be the real thing, not the thing that I expect, that I think people would expect. And that doesn't mean like parade my sin, but it does mean acknowledge that I'm a human and I have flaws. But another thing is like preaching. Like, one of the things in writing a book right now, it's been really fun. But one of the things that I've asked my friends that I've sent snippets to is like, does this sound like me? Because if it sounds like somebody else, I don't want it in my book. Like, I want the people that know me to read it and say like, oh yeah, it's Steven. Or the people that read it and then maybe they hear me someday talk about something, they're like, oh, he speaks exactly like he writes. Like, that's something that I value. And same with the joy, joyful is one of them. Like, our home is a place of laughter and fun and chaos. And we want to laugh a lot. We want to smile a lot. We obviously have to punish kids and we cry, like all the things happen there. But we do have some habits of joy, of just like being silly, and like our dinner table is a place where we can dance and sing and do all those things. So Yeah, anything you'd add to yours?
No, I mean, the last core value I had was just stewardship. And I think that that has really time, talent, and treasure, very biblical wording. But, as much as it goes like, with, money and handling your finances well, I think I've really leaned into the side of your time with stewarding. And I see that a lot. Actually, it kind of started with you guys and babysitting your kiddos all the time. I remember there was one time I think Taylor called me and she was like, "Can you come over in like 5 minutes and like leave your house in like 5 minutes? We're going on a date night." And I was like, "Yeah." And I just realized I'm in a season of life where I can do that. And so being aware of how can I give my time to people that need someone to give their time. And so I think there's just like there's ways to just steward your life and realize that like my whole life is a service to others and ultimately unto the Lord. But that there's just ways that I'm gifted or the season of life that I'm in that I can bless other people that really isn't to my disadvantage, like
Right.
it's not hard for me to do. And I think we just don't realize that it's really easy to like love the people around you when you have a steward mindset,
Mm-hmm.
because it's like this isn't my time anyway, like I'll take the extra 30 minutes after a life group to talk to a girl because this is okay. Like ultimately this is having kingdom impact, so
That's so good. And you do that really well. And I think like the thing that's really fun is when you do have people in your life that know your values and can one hold you accountable, but also call it out in the positive ways too. Because there's the side of it of like, hey, that, we've talked about it last week, but values based parenting for us is really important because, one of our values kind of unofficially, we're actually, we talked about this on our date last night. We're going to get them on paper and put them in our kids' rooms and well, they can't read, so maybe not there yet, but we're going to like put these in our homes that our kids and we are always reminded of it. But one of the unofficial ones is kindness. And one of the unofficial, like that's one of the things that we talk about a lot. And so when we correct our kids, we're not just saying, don't do that. We're saying glossers are kind. Like, do you think that was kind? Do you think, I mean, we don't use this language, but were you living inside our values? Like, were you living as the person that we are, or were you acting outside of that? Because I think they can recognize that, and we have that conversation all the time. Like, was that kind? And are we kind people or not kind people? And the 6-year-old, 5-year-old, they can go like, we're kind people, and that wasn't kind. And then we invite them back in, not like we kick them out, but like they're outside the door and we open the door. All right, you can go back in your home. But no, we just invite them back into that to live within those values again. And that might have sounded more spiritual than it is, but it's just a practical thing that has helped us not just be really reactive. We're like, no, we know how we're trying to lead our family. Fun, joy, laughter, those are part of our values. Kindness is part of our values. Welcoming, hospitality, that's part of our values. So I think that when you have people in your life that can remind you of those things, it's really helpful. So whether it's, teachable and I'm being a brat, not accepting criticism, you or somebody else can speak into my life and say, hey, I know one of your values is teachable. And do you think that you're being teachable right now? I'm like, no, I'm not. Or whatever the case is. So I think that's important. So think through those people. Who can you invite into this and who can you like show this to and help even just sit down for a weekend or a Saturday coffee and talk through this stuff and then read them to each other. But just some things to help you guys as you do this. I know this is a lot, to go through, but really to help you take some next steps, ask yourself a few questions. First, what values do I want to define my life? So go back to last episode and do that. What habits would reflect those values in my current season? So what does that look like being embodied? Who in my life can help me stay aligned, or who in my life is pulling me off course? How often am I checking in on my value-based living? Can I build this into a habit, a rhythm, monthly, bi-monthly, whatever you want to do? And then what books can I read that help me align with my core values? That's actually been something that's really dictated a lot of the books that I've read. So you said teachable, like that's an obvious one. But I remember when I set these, the first book I ordered was one called A Jesus-Centered Life. And I don't remember who the author was, but it just talked about how to live a Jesus-centered life. I have a book called Joyful. Like I wanted the psychology side of joy, and relationships is a huge part of that came out of that book. People driven, How to Win Friends and Influence People, Winning with People by John Maxwell. Like a lot of the books that have kind of become core to me come out of these things that are values based.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so good. And I think that, I really like the idea of going to the people in your life and asking them, like, these are what I want my core values to be. 1, can you hold me accountable? And 2, do you see this in me too? And I think that that's huge. I think one part of that is really awesome in discovering your core values is just inviting people in to encourage you, but then also to kind of be the guardrails for you of like, hey, you're kind of stepping outside of that, or no, I really do see that in you. That's awesome. And I just think the more that you can do it in community, the better. And it keeps you accountable. And I think it also opens the door to when you're with those people, they're going to help you stay within your values if they know what they are.
For sure. Absolutely. So you have a lot to chew on. If you haven't established those core values, do that. And then just really, ask yourself, what does this look like? And what do I need to do to be there and to stay there? And then who can come alongside me in that? And then what I would encourage you is just choose one core value this week and pick a one habit that you can start living it out. So if there's one of your values that you want to really focus on, do that. And then maybe pick one book, to live family focused. I'm going to find one book that really helps that. So do that this week. As always, if you are a listener to the podcast and you like it, share with somebody, especially if you think that these episodes, this kind of series would help people. Share those with some people. Tag us if you do it online, goingsomewhere.podcast, where you can find us on Instagram. Also, if you're ever in Fargo, stop by Northview Church. This is a podcast that's produced by Northview, and we just want to say, hey, come and hang out with us on a Sunday. But yeah, pumped that you're along for the journey. Hope that this episode helped you in some way, shape, or form. Anything to add, Megan, as we go?
I think just we're all going somewhere. Might as well go there together.
Amen, sister. Amen.